Hey, it's me, Anrijs. Today I'm gonna talk about how to start tattooing in realism. I don't think it's really the best thing for someone who haven't tattooed anything at all and straight jumping into realism. So this will be for someone maybe who tattooing already 2-3 years from the studio or even longer, and maybe you are feeling this is the right time to start tattooing in realism. So I'm gonna try to go through a few tips and I'm gonna try to explain what's the best thing where to start. So yeah, realism tattooing is completely different to traditional tattooing, and it doesn't require like line work and like solid color or something. It's more like color blends and shades and contrasts and working on like smoothing everything out and kind of trying to make it look as real as possible, not really cartoony and stuff. But there's still a lot of things to kind of worry about, and a lot of people think it's one of the hardest way of tattoo form, and a lot of people think that's the best kind of tattoo if it's realism, but I personally don't think it's like that. And I think any really tattoos is really hard, especially like nice solid tattoos will last years and years, and almost any style can be a really good tattoo or can be a really bad tattoo. So if you never tried to tattoo anything realistic, or you tried maybe a few times and you don't really feel it's your kind of thing, best thing it will be to start tattooing on some of your friend or someone who you know very well. That way it will take off the pressure of like paying customer for you, and you're gonna kind of experiment on him, you know. Just make sure to tell your friend, oh, this is something I want to do now, and explain that you just want to try to switch the styles, or it's your first try, and like just be honest with them, you know. Don't say it's gonna be like the best tattoo you ever see and stuff. Even if you mess something up, you know, when you're a little bit better, you can always get back and fix it up. That's the number one thing, I think. Do it on someone who trusts you, who knows you, or maybe even on some of your existing customer who you work and who you know very well already. Just offer them maybe free tattoo, you know. Go on your day off and just try to do it. Next thing to do is find a good reference, and that's super important, you know, because if you will have bad reference, the tattoo will not look as strong as it could possibly be, and it's only because of the reference, not because of you or because of like your machines or needles or anything. It's just because of the reference. If it's not good, the tattoo is not going to really look good as well. And when you're choosing reference for the first pieces, what you want to try in realism as well, I would suggest don't do it portraits, don't do portrait realism, because that's one of the hardest things to do, especially when you're just starting, and there's so many things can go wrong with it. So I will go with something what's more readable, even from the distance, like nice and bold kind of design, and what you know straight away, and a little bit easier for you to achieve that result as well. And so here I'm gonna show a few references what I printed out, what's gonna be really good to start with. So the first thing is like skull images. So here I have like 2 skull images. I would say this is bad reference because contrast is not really sharp, too many things happening there and you don't even know what it is. But kind of if you go for something like that, it's a lot bolder, it's more contrast to it, it has a lot of black. Like this one, for example, almost doesn't have any black in it, but this one has, and even from the distance it will look still like quite bold tattoo, and that will be really good like to do skull design for your first tattoo. Another thing, maybe mask designs. Mask designs are pretty cool. You can find like a load of different masks and type of masks, and as well that's not going to be like a face portrait and where you need to worry about eyes and nose and all those details. It's going to be like a little bit easier for you to do. And here I have 2 samples of masks as well. Something like that not gonna be great for your first tattoo. Firstly, not a good contrast there, and so much details over all those, and it's gonna be super hard to achieve all that smooth shading around like lips and stuff and nose. But something like this will be a lot easier to do because it has like nice bold dark black and also really readable shapes and everything, you know, and you can even use some line work to kind of crisp something out. So this will be a lot easier and a lot more better result you can achieve if you choose reference more like this. And also horror designs are really good, kind of horror portraits, classic horror images and stuff, because they have like nice contrasts. And for this example I just chose like some zombies, you know, and I wanted to show again 2 examples of it, and one will be so much details, not so much contrast, you know, and all those hair and stuff. And especially something like that, if you do and if it heals after like 2 or 3 years, it just all like turns into a mess because it's nothing is crisp there. If you do something like that, it will be a lot more, again, crisper and darker and everything, and it will last many years and it's still gonna look good. So that's with black and gray. And of course with color, if you want to do something color as well for your first tattoo, maybe you're not into black and gray and you want to like straight away to do color realism, I would suggest to pick some references maybe with not too many colors. You don't want to set up like 50 different ink caps on your table and like, you know, do some like color realism portrait with every color on it and stuff like that, because it's really hard. I would go with something only what has like few colors in it. For example, maybe some bugs or insects, or again maybe some masks, someone from horror movies. So here are two quite good examples to do for your first tattoo. You know, it still has quite a lot black, it has good contrast with red and green around, and if you go with something like that as well, it will be quite easy to achieve. Something like this will be a lot harder, but again, it doesn't have a lot of color, only a little bit red, a little bit green, a little bit yellow and stuff. Something like that will be a lot easier for you to start with if you want to do it in realism. So after you found design and after you found the person who you're gonna do that design on, the next thing will be to choose where it's gonna go on, like the placement. And for that placement as well, try to find some areas where it's gonna be quite easy to work. For example, top of thighs, or back of your legs, or side of your leg maybe. Don't go straight over on the ribs, you know, or some other awkward places like on the neck or something like that, you know. Don't do that. So the best one will be maybe top of the leg, because it's nice and kind of smooth area. It's not really that painful there either, so your customer will be able to sit to get that piece. Then what I would suggest to do, for example, if you pick design like this and you want to do this one on your customer, you show it, and if everything's fine, you book in what day you want to do it. And then what I would do, I would study design and I will draw it a few times maybe, you know, just trace over on the light box, trace like guidelines and try to draw it with the pens and pencils or something. Try to draw that design a few times to even know if you can even draw it, you know, because if you can't draw that design on a paper, you're not going to be able to tattoo it on the skin, because that can be so much harder. So I would really suggest you to draw it maybe not even once, or maybe 2 times on the paper, maybe even 3 times if you have a time, you know, no rush. Take your time with it, with the drawing. If you need to spend like 5, 6, 7 hours on it, don't worry, you know, that's gonna only benefit you. Just try to practice a little bit more before even starting, yeah, straight on the skin. You'll find it a lot easier to tattoo later on. On the day, get the stencil ready. I have a separate video where I talk about stencils and how I do it. You can check that one out. Put the stencil on, let it dry for like good, maybe like 20 minutes, you know, and then just approach it really slowly. I usually start from like the bottom, so I kind of don't wipe the stencil off. I usually just slowly start from like one corner and block every shape and kind of textures and everything, and working like all the way up to the one corner, almost like a printer, you know. And maybe try not to do like every single tiny detail as well. You don't want to make it over complicated for you. That's why it's good for reference to choose something like this, because it's, even though it has a lot of details, you don't really need to do every single like crack and every single dot on it, you know. It's still gonna look like a skull, even if it's gonna be like just a shape and like some shading around. It's still gonna look like a skull design. And like work slowly, maybe take your time always. Something like that, maybe like this size, like hand size, something like that, could take you like 6, 7 hours easy. Go maybe a little bit smaller for the first one, maybe finish it in like 5, 6 hours. Just try to be patient and take your time and look on the reference, and try just kind of look at the smallest area where you're tattooing and just try to work on it and try to make it the same as the reference photo. And if you draw it a few times before the session, it will be a lot easier, because like I said before, you already would know what to do with it. If you've never done like any sessions longer than 3-4 hours, you might feel that, oh my god, how am I gonna do that? But actually once you start doing few of them, it's not that bad at all. And I will make separate video how to approach day session work and help you out with some tips how I do it, because I work mainly day sessions all the time, and I found it quite easy now because I'm so used to it. But in the beginning it was hard, so that's why I'm gonna make separate video for that, to hopefully help some of you guys out as well. So if this is your first time you're trying realism tattoo as well, definitely you will need to set up your machines lower than usual, than your traditional like liners and shaders. Definitely set it up a lot lower volt, more softer to the skin. Try not to push it all the way in, you know, kind of try to work on top of the skin and slowly building up those like shades and lights and transactions and everything. And don't rush, you know, just take your time and try to build it up. Even if you don't finish in one day, you know, don't worry. Explain your customer it takes longer than you thought, and like you just want to make sure you want to do a good job in it, you know. You don't want just like quickly rush something up and say, oh yeah, this is cool. If you do it black and gray, try not to do it too dark, you know. You can always come back later on when it's healed and do it little areas a little bit darker if you need. But if you go way too dark, there's no way for you to lighten it up later on, because it's also your first one. You're not really sure how it's gonna heal, so maybe do it a little bit lighter. And where the black is solid black, still do it solid black, of course, but you know, like these areas, like lighter areas. Try not to do dark shading over it or something, because it's gonna be really hard for you to do anything with it if it's gonna go too dark. Don't be afraid to experiment with like tattoo machine, you know, and different kind of hand movements and different like volts and needle configurations, because you never done it before, so it kind of will be a little bit different than the traditional tattoos. So you need to kind of find a way how you're gonna do it, because every single person will do it differently. You know, every tattooer will do their work differently, with different hand movements, with different speeds, with different needles. And hopefully once you will find all that, it will be quite easy for you to achieve the result you're looking for. And also, I said before, maybe tattoo it on your friend. And it's important because after it finished tattoo, you can still check out the healing process. You know, you can check out after 5 days and after 2 weeks or something, and you can check out and you can see what you maybe done wrong with it, or maybe where you went too light or too dark or something. That will hopefully will help you for the next designs. And also you can always come back and touch it up later on, add some little bit more texture, some little bit more detail, maybe some like cracks or something. If you're doing school, then you can add a little bit more cracks or a little bit smoother, some shades. Even if you work on tattoo design for like 2-3 sessions already, there's always gonna be more what you can do on it. It's never gonna be like finished. You just need to kind of leave it when you're happy with it. About the needles and stuff as well, it's kind of the best to find what you like to use already. And if you did some black and gray work what wasn't realism, and if it worked for you, then definitely use those needles. And if you are a traditional color artist and you have your own setup for like good needles, what to pack solid color and stuff, just try to use them only on lower voltage and everything. Kind of try to work with your own setup. Don't try to like buy 100 different machines and different needles and then suddenly start jumping on it, because it's just gonna make it all too complicated. Just try something simple, what you already are comfortable with, and just try to do that realism tattoo with what you already use. And hopefully you will try some realism and you will be happy with it, and your customer will be happy with it, and they're gonna come again for you to get more realism, and everything will be cool. See you next time.